welcome to the next episode of the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. With me, back, my co-host, Jeff Taylor. Bodine.
What's up, man?
It's warm outside, isn't it?
It is
and
warm
humid.
outside. But this is my kind of weather, so I ain't complaining.
So, for the second time in a matter of weeks, not us, but the podcast and me specifically, we are in the shadows of one of the most historic racetracks in the world. You know, last week did a show with Hermie Sadler and Senator Stanley, the leaning right, turning left podcast.
Well, depends on what night.
Well, you know,
He may be leaning the other way. And
well, I thought about that. I said,
way.
if you knew nothing about either one of those two, if you knew nothing about it, and you come across the name of that podcast, you wouldn't think it was a racing show. You would think,
Drinking.
You would think, well, this might be some progressive's journey from going from a conservative over to a liberal. You know, I'm kind of I'm turning left, I'm leaning kind of right, but I think I'm going to start turning left. You know what I mean? It kind of sounds like some conservative's journey into a progressive lifestyle or something. But
I'll have to listen to it then.
You haven't listened to it yet?
No, I really hadn't. I have not. Like, work has been like constant phone calls, like one after the other
I'm not surprised you hadn't listened to it because you chose work over going down and actually being a part of that show.
I had to do it.
Which I
had a commitment I had to keep.
Well,
you haven't listened to it yet?
Uh-uh.
Good. Your Tesla was mentioned again.
Oh yeah,
I
your nickname is Tesla. Boy.
Has he got me any rebates or anything through Virginia going through the Senate? That would be nice.
Yeah, it ain't
happening.
No. It ain't happening.
So
no tax breaks.
Yeah.
Dang.
So we're back in the shadows today of Martinsville Speedway, but for a completely different reason. And we're joined once again by, I guess at this point in time, we should almost call him our co-host because we've done so many shows with him. Chris Williams. Chris, director of the Smart Modified Tour. I don't even have to introduce you, but welcome. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. You're in my yard. Actually my dad's yard, but you're in the yard. As soon as you come to the entrance of the Martinsville Speedway to the right, it's our domain, and you're in the front yard, actually.
We are. So if you go back to, I don't know, about 10 or 11 months ago to the first time we had Chris on the podcast, he'd kind of mentioning growing up here as you turn on to Martinsville Speedway and kind of his story about, helping one of Earnhardt's haulers change a tire?
Yeah. Right there where that stop sign is. Right there. So that's where Hank and them, Dad and all them, Daddy worked at the racetrack and they wanted to set on track property. And I'm talking about they being the souvenir industry, Hank Jones and them. And they would nobody ever got to set on property anywhere. And so they communicated, to the racetrack and Clay Campbell and everything, and Clay Earls, and they finally let them park up here. There was no road right there. That new road that I'm pointing out did not exist. It was a bank.
Yeah, I don't remember that being here when we first came to the Speedway.
And this was the main road that went down. And so as you look straight across, there was a dirt hill or whatever. It used to be ours, which we were supposed to get free tickets and everything to the racetrack for years that Papa has written somewhere from Mr. Earls. But we ended up giving it to him. But make a long story short, that's where they parked them. And it was Earnhardt's trailer, Bobby Allison. There was a few more Petties. And that was the first time they ever got. Now, you're 800 yards from the main gate, so you see it wasn't the best place, but it was the first time ever. Well, of course, it rained that year really hard. And so Hank and them got stuck right there. And I was sitting here in the house. Of course, I go to the races, but with raining, there's no sense of going down to the track. And I was watching them trying to hook up. And I'm like, they ain't never going to get that hooked up. So I got my granddaddy's tractor, and I went over there, and we pulled them out. And the rest is history.
So, and you got my brain rewinding because I've been here so many times, but I couldn't remember what the entrance looked like when I was a kid. But I remember now this was just a straight entrance, and the souvenir haulers would sit up on both sides.
Yeah. They so you have back then it was the Booths, but then they ended up selling to the Ellers, which now the track owns. But they were down there on the end, and this road wasn't as wide. I mean, it was narrow. And Daddy's yard, you can see that little hump right there past that tree.
Yeah.
It was a hill. So when they reconfigured all this, they actually gave Daddy about 30 feet, maybe less, of a round.
Which they had took.
Yeah, they had took before, but they basically gave it back. Clay and M gave it back. The county gave it back. The city, whatever. Well, actually, the county, because we're in Ridgeway. We're not in Martinsville.
Okay.
So just so you're aware,
I was thinking
Martinsville
that.
city limits is the middle of that road all the way down to the track.
Seriously. So it splits the track in half.
Yeah. So
Now, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Ridgeway is Mom and Dad's house. So anything south is Ridgeway on the side of the road, and everything over there is Martinsville city limits.
So if I go stand in the middle of the road, I'm in Martinsville City, basically.
Yeah.
Ain't that something?
Does it end up splitting the track at any point in time?
That's the reason why they did it, was to get the track in the city.
So
Right.
what, like turns 1 and 2 are in Ridgeway and 3 and 4 in Martinsville?
Technically, that's true. That's
And I would say the
true.
911 address to the track is probably in Martinsville
Yeah,
city limits,
it
and
is.
that's all that matters.
Yeah. So anyway, so when I was growing up, playing ball and everything, they didn't open the gates on Thursday night. They opened them Friday morning. My dad and them would go down and open the gates, but all the haulers would line the street at night. And so Harefield, Ted, was it Ted Harefield? Harrison, the first Wrangler driver for Dale, would always stop right here, and I'd shoot ball, and I'd get them some food, or we'd take them somewhere to get them something to eat or whatever. And me and Ted, I can't believe I forgot his name. I'm almost ticked right now. It's Harrison. It was Ted Harrison. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, Ted, so I got a cool relationship with the hauler drivers and Henry Benfield and all the rest of them. It was in the streets and stuff. And my basketball goal was right there where my Tahoe's parked right now. And I would sit there and just communicate with them the whole time. And it was an episode. And then in the morning, Dad would have to, wiggle around getting out to go down there and open the gates at 6 o'clock and let them in. But I mean, it was pretty cool to be on the street back in the day for sure while the race was going on.
That'd be Thursday mornings probably.
Yeah,
or Friday.
They would come in Thursday night, and Dad and them would open the gates on Friday morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember being a kid because we would walk up this road here, and the way it was configured, and I guess it was in 91 or 92. It had to be those 2 years. I remember walking out, and I remember seeing a Lincoln Town car, and Alan Kowicki was driving it. I was like, man, that's Alan Kowicki right there.
Yeah.
And I looked over, he's like in a Lincoln Town car. I'll never forget that. It was like right down there.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know, but like a lot of the drivers and a lot of people still park here. Dale Earnhardt was the first one that ever parked here. When I became friends with Dale and started working with him, he would park right there where Mama's car is, and he'd back in. And so after the race, he'd just come up, get in there, and sometimes he'd ride an ambulance, and it was always incognito until he created the mule, Kawasaki mule that he created for us at trackside, so we could drive him everywhere. But I mean, now the whole lot is drivers pretty much, and they've been coming for year after year. Mom and Dad's built great relationships with pretty much all of them. Kyle, Kurt Busch, everybody.
And what year are we talking?
It's been from 80, probably 86 is when they started, at least till now. They all come.
And roughly, I was just getting a frame of mind. So it was like roughly around the time I was a kid and started coming. It was like 91 when my first race here was when Earnhardt and Harry Gant tangled, and Harry Gant came back and won.
Yeah.
Mr. September's.
Yeah.
Was it the last?
Won 4 in a row.
Was that the fourth race of the 4 in a row?
I
Julian,
think so.
I
Yeah.
can't think it was.
Well, Martin-
It was because I was in Richmond. It was like Darlington, Richmond, Martinsville, not Wilkesboro. What was the other one?
Yeah, it was.
Wilkesboro.
I was
You
thinking
want
it
Wilkesboro,
was
Richmond.
Well, no. Well, usually Martinsville was the last week of April
Yeah.
and the last week of September.
Yep.
It should be that again,
Usually.
just in case anybody didn't ask Mark Clements. If you're listening, tell somebody. Martinsville, get it back in warm weather, please.
Please.
But anyway, it was fun, not just because, Daddy was working at the racetrack, because, you had all access, but you also had to work too. I mean, sometimes I had to cut onions. Sometimes I had to do other things that they were doing. And, before the big grandstand, I'd even help Dad and them. They would get a crew, and then we would put out chairs on the top row for the VIPs, I guess is what it was. And there ain't too much that Dad wouldn't make me do. But the funny thing is I got chewed out one time. Somebody tore the fence down. I can't remember what division it was. And I was helping him as much as I can. And I was up watching the race, and they called on the PA system, everybody with, the racetrack and whatever needs to come down here because they need to get the fence fixed. Well, after they got the fence fixed, I was up there eating chicken. And Daddy come up there, and he's like, when the announcement says everybody with the track, that means you too. I'm like, yes, sir. And so the very next race had a water line break. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Claire Earls called Dad. Dad went down there, and he come in there, and he says, let's go. I'm like, I guess I got to go. I'm part of the racetrack. So I went down there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we dug it out and fixed it, and still had to go and put that chairs out at 5:30. But that's the fun time when, the racetrack had the triple headers and, the double headers, and they were fun. They were really a good time for the modifieds. Just pulling for what I consider the best racing there is. It was fun. It was a fun time seeing all those people come in.
And I'm sort of hung up, Billy. I'm sorry to interrupt you, because all I can think about is I'm sitting here looking at the Intimidator's parking spot.
Yeah, you are.
I'm taken back. It's almost like the Wayne's World. Remember the Wayne's World when they met Alice Cooper and they said, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're scum. We suck."
Well, it kind of So, this has been a very long intro right here to why we are here today. But if you listen to a lot of our shows, I know a lot of our racing fans have, Chris has been on a lot of them, and he's been on the most popular ones we've done to date. Like, all of our top 10 episodes, anyone Chris has been on is in the top 10. So, there's been a lot of stories that have come from him, and a lot of interest, a lot of intrigue, and then a lot of our connections with the Smart Modified Tour. So we're here today, actually as a favor for Chris, but to me, Bodine, and you probably, I think it's a huge sign of respect. I certainly appreciate being able to come down there here today and tell this story, because if you've listened to a lot of our episodes, and especially the one where we just featured Chris, because he's been in a handful of them, with a lot of these other drivers, Jimmy, Gerald, Paul Radford, all these guys. So they're kind of the center. We had him on, and he told a lot of stories about his dad, about growing up here in front of the Speedway. So today we're actually here, and his dad is our guest. It's Orbreyn Williams, and I'm super thrilled to be down here to tell this story. I'm super glad that Chris asked us to do it, because what this podcast is all about is not only telling the stories of people that are around today, it's telling the stories from generations back, so we can preserve those stories, and our grandkids and kids can listen to them and kind of get an idea of where we came from. And I can't think, honestly, when Chris asked me, I was kind of dumbfounded. I was like, are you kidding? This is almost as good as getting Bobby Labonte, because you're sitting here and you're going to get to speak with somebody who is sat on the corner of, essentially 220 business and Speedway Road for how long? 50 years, 60 years?
No, every bit of it, yeah.
And
he was born in
this house.
Chris's mom just said he was born in
82 years.
How about that?
Well, Orbreyn, welcome to the Appalachian Podcast. I just want to say I appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on here and telling us some stories.
You're very welcome.
I think it's really cool because, you're the owner of the Intimidator's parking spot, man, and we're there. It's awesome. It's special to me. It is, because I'm a racing fan. I'm a fan of the sport. I'm not the historian I want to be. I'm more the gearhead historian of the sport, and I'm totally fascinated by being here to be able to talk about this today.
Yeah, countless times I have driven by this house and not even a second thought about it, and here I am at 40 years old almost. And we're sitting here on the corner, and we're getting ready to tell some amazing stories with a gentleman who has sat on his front porch with him and Chris as well, and just watched some of the greatest legends of our time and before our time come in and out of here and speak with them and develop relationships. So if you think back to all the great stories Chris has, know his dad has got to have better ones, because he's the one, he's the patriarch. It's like the teacher and the student. Yeah. So.
Yeah, he taught me a lot. It's kind of funny you say that, because somebody asked me a long time ago, said, you had a lot of influence with your dad. What do you think he instilled in you? And I was like, I said, doing it right. I can tell you there's many a times, you don't waste your time just to be involved. You've got to do it right. And so it makes you think, not only back in the day, you was trying to make sure you were doing it right. One, because you didn't want to get fussed at, because he was very quick to point out you can't fix stupid. You know what I'm saying? And number
I keep
two,
trying with Bodine though. I keep trying.
but I think about all the stuff that I learned after all those lessons. I was thinking about just now as y'all said it. I just remembered a story. I think Daddy, I don't know who he was with, but he took his BB gun, and the railroad had just come through.
Lewis Powell.
And what happened, Daddy? What was you doing?
Well, we squirrel hunted every evening after school.
All right.
And we had to cross the railroad to go into the woods.
Yeah, right here at the racetrack.
And come out and he said, let's shoot some of the lights out on that pole. I said, no, we'll get in trouble. And he said, I'm going to shoot one. He said, if I shoot one, you shoot one? I said, well, I guess so. So we shot them all out. And went down to the store here, and he said, Orbreyn, you know a detective from Richmond's up here looking for you. I said, well, I seen a car going back and forth. I was over Lewis's house. I didn't know there was no detective looking for me. And finally stopped. And he come up and he said, I'm the detective so-and-so. He's about 6'9", big guy, nice looking. He said, I've been trying to get you two separated. See what kind of lie you tell. And I said, well, I ain't gonna lie to you. We done it.
That was
He said,
confession.
I can't believe that. He said, I can't believe it. I just had to walk up here and say you're guilty. And I said, well, that's where I am. And he said, well, I'll be at your dad's house at 8 o'clock tonight and explain it to you what we're going to do. So he come to the house, and his boss man wanted to put me in formatory school. Wanted me to pay for everything we'd shot out, backboard, everything, the lights. So Dad was saying, how much is it? He said, $96.
Back in the day, boy,
Oh,
$96 a lot of money.
That's like $4,000 today.
And he paid me. Never said a word, not one word to me about it. And school was out, and he come got me out of the bed.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
He said, let's go to work. I said, I ain't working, I'm on vacation. He said, no, you're going to work this year.
Uh-oh.
So he put me into school with a pick and shovel, digging in rock with sewer lines. And let a backhoe, brand new backhoe, watch me do it, which he could do it, to give me something to do. And the first day, he bought me a Pepsi-Cola, pack of crackers, and a pack of beans, and a can of beans. And he said, after that evening, he handed me a check, and he said, he said, sign it. I signed it. I thought I was going to sign it and be everything right and be mine. 25 cents an hour.
Oh.
And he said, you remember the lights you shot out? I said, yeah. He said, when you get it paid for, you get your check.
Ooh.
He took a check back.
Yeah.
Now, what year was this?
Lord have mercy. I was probably 16. I'm 82 now.
So 80. So you were born in 1940,
39.
39. So we're talking about the mid 50s.
Yeah.
So the track was here at that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's mind-boggling to know you have sit here since this. You have been here since the track started, and you have watched people come in and out. I mean, what's the biggest takeaway from today compared to what it was 65, 70 years ago? Was it better back then, or do you like it now, or as times gotten so crazy that I'm just wondering. I'm trying to figure out what it was like here 60 years ago.
I liked it when they brought the cars and covered up at headlights and put a chain on the door and raced.
Oh, good Lord.
They didn't do all this fancy stuff. It was better then anyway.
I seen old pictures, and I know we still got them, of this road and people parked because there was so many people here. They were parked on the side of the road, any hole they can get.
Yep.
And it wasn't a northbound and southbound lane back then. It was one single lane, north
Yep.
and south, and it was just on this right side. And we have the pictures. It's unbelievable of the and going down here to the track in dresses, going down here, guys in suits.
And that was
going-
probably definitely 50s and 60s in
Yeah.
that time frame, because
Yeah.
that
and
as fashion changed.
yeah, and we still have the pictures, and it's Daddy's seen it from when it was basically a dirt road to even a dirt track at one time.
Yeah.
To Fortune 500 companies and big rigs, and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
how
total
that's
change.
how I'm trying to put into perspective here. I'm trying to be able to make people be able to relate the time period, how when he was sitting here on this property, just a history that has driven by here, by this house, like how much progress you've seen from your front porch, and not just from racing, just from everything. Like, you have seen probably the greatest leap in the history of man from right here on the front porch. And a lot of that has been through the racing world. You've seen the Pettys and the Allisons, and it's just, it's awesome to be able to sit here and speak with somebody so out of all the people who have come through here, all their legends, who has impressed you the most? Who do you remember the most?
Dale Hurnall.
So I got to tell this story.
That should have been an easy one.
Well, not only did he represent Earnhardt and sell souvenirs, but before that, Dad. I mean, I've told this story before. I mean, when my appendix ruptured in high school in basketball.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him what he remembered about that week, honestly.
Do you remember all that, Dad? When I missed my first day of school ever, and you asked me.
Earnhardt was down there practicing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's mind-boggling.
And
I mean, the same way he tells
I
it.
told Barbara, I said, I'm going to let him skip school one day because he wants to go down there and that's his driver. So did. And I told him, I said, don't you speak to that man. Don't you say a word to him unless he talks to you.
He did.
And I went about 2 hours later, went to see where he was, couldn't find him. And finally found him sitting in a car with Earnhardt. So I opened the door. I said, what do you think you're doing? And Earnhardt said, just leave him alone, shut the door. Me and him's getting along fine.
That's a true statement. That's a true statement. And so Dad and him, had a relationship, because they've seen each other. Dale was racing in limited late models back in the day in the 70s and early 80s. But anyway, so it brings up another one because, we talked about the fishing and, what Daddy's meant to fishing. And Daddy can tell you the whole story, but one thing led to another, and Earnhardt wanted to fish the pond. People don't realize it used to be a
Yeah,
pond.
I remember the pond.
We want to bring the
remember
pond back.
Yeah.
I'm all about
I
bringing
vote-
it back.
And I think Daddy, and I'll let him tell the story, but Daddy told him, said, man, you get caught. You're in trouble. Go ahead and finish the story with
It's a
Earnhardt.
bank, big sea bank. And he was fishing. He brought his own pole, but he dropped it and started running. I said, what in the world? And I looked behind me. He was straight back. Clay Arrows was crawling over the bank
Tried to catch you.
trying to catch him.
Trying to catch Earnhardt fishing.
Yeah.
He was crawling like a Navy SEAL.
Dude, you didn't fish and you didn't touch a goose or a geese or
I remember
whatever.
the geese, yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you. But
And
go ahead.
He started running, hollering, Orbreyn told me I could buy a fish.
So Earnhardt skinned him out to Clay Earl that Daddy told him he could do it. We got a picture of that thing somewhere. Actually, the Martinsville Bulletin took a picture of him in his uniform during the test session fishing. It's a cool pic. And
I mean, just for anybody out there listening to this, and I know the overwhelming majority of the people listening know more about Earnhardt than we can ever imagine. Just imagine the Intimidator running. He doesn't run from anybody. You know what I mean? He doesn't run from anybody. He's the Intimidator running, screaming, he told me I could fish here.
Everybody was scared of Clay Earls.
Oh, yeah.
Really? What made him so intimidating?
Well, uptown in Martinsville, he met a car, and both of them stopped and got shooting at each other.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Then over here, right at Clarence's, he pulled the car over and shot him through the cheek and
Claire
through the
did.
shoulder.
Clay shot somebody through the cheek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he was telling me about it. He said, I'm sorry I done that because I missed him. I said, you didn't miss him. I said, you put one in his cheek, one in his shoulder. He said, I was important in his head.
So for the three people out there who listen that don't know who Clay Earls is, I guess he was the original owner of Martinsville Speedway.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, somebody that's massively well known and nowadays would be a social superstar essentially. But
And now Clay Earls is the grandfather of Clay Campbell,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I didn't know if I missed the family, if it was great grandfather.
No, it's granddad.
Okay.
And, Clay's been a mainstay with us. Clay Earls didn't let him hang around too many people back in the day. And we were one of the few that Clay could, hang out with and hung out. And, we laugh all the time. Daddy, we'd go down there and sneak on the track and run the go-karts. And, Daddy had to give us the "Here Comes Clay Earls" scenario because David Davis and a bunch of them would race. And it was a fun time. But Daddy looked out after us to a certain extent, except for the time that I can't remember what it was. I think it was, that's where I thought I was going to get my first beating when it was either me and Scotty or me and Tim Pace when we threw the rock at the duck.
Uh-oh.
And he grabbed us, put us in the pace car.
Clay did.
Clay Earls. And he first told us he was taking us to the police station. And I was probably 7, maybe 8 years old. I mean, the pond's like 600 yards, you know what I'm saying? And it was Scotty. It wasn't Tim at the time. It was Scotty. And because we went over there, and I know they told Ethel and Ken, and Scotty got a beating, like a bad beating. And I sat in the car and listened to him get a beating, and I'm like, I'm in trouble, like trouble. So we come up here, and I let Daddy tell the story. So Clay come and knocked on the door, and I was behind him, and he come in. I think he asked you, could he speak to you for a second? You said, yeah, come on in. And you was eating, I remember. You was eating, and he told you, what did he tell you? He said, oh, yeah, I can tell you the whole story. He tells him, he's like, your son has been throwing rocks at the ducks.
Uh-oh.
And Daddy was eating, just eating away. And he looked up and he said, did he kill him? And he's like, no. He said, did he hit him? And he said, I don't think so. Daddy's still eating, just eating. And Daddy says, I'm going to take care of it. And Mr. Earl says, I really appreciate that. He said, the Ashbys took care of this other one. I want you to take care of it. So Clay Earls left. And so I'm sitting there like, the beating's getting ready to begin. I sit there and Daddy's eating. I'm like, okay. 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, Daddy's eating. I'm like, what? I'm getting ready to get a beating. So finally quit eating, and he looked up at me, and he says, you didn't kill one of them? No. He said, you should have. He said, them things poop everywhere. And he said, I'm sick and tired of going through it. And I never got a beating or anything for it. Boy, I was a happy lark that day. That's for sure.
Those are one of those moments you remember with your pops.
Well, I had this, and I reference Earnhardt because I think of this Earnhardt scenario when Junior and him were racing over in Japan, and Junior wrecked Senior or something got into him, and they were in the hauler afterwards changing clothes and
threw the shoe at him.
Yeah, Yeah, Earnhardt was quiet. Junior had already went in, was sitting down, taking his clothes off, getting ready to walk out and do his interview. And Senior walks in, closes the door, doesn't say a word. Junior looks down, and when he does that, a shoe goes right over his head and slams the wall behind him. I kind of figured that's what your dad was going to do.
Daddy didn't throw nothing, but
I was thinking
I got kicked one time in the butt for Daddy. I got to tell the story. So we were out here, and basketball. I mean, I was always playing basketball, and everybody was up here playing basketball. And my grandma, she was a little nervous. Daddy come out there and gave everybody out here the speech. My brother, Tim Pace, Scotty, everybody that was here. Henry Williams and him was playing with us that day. Everybody. Daddy says, I'm going to tell y'all right now, y'all do whatever you want to, but you start screaming, I'm coming out here, and y'all don't want me to come out here. Well, you know how it is when everything gets started. So I'm sitting there, and I start getting mad. I think at my brother. I don't know what was going on, but I was getting mad, and I was hollering. Well, my grandma come to the door, and I guess my daddy heard her say something to us, and I didn't see him coming. So I was listening to my grandma trying to tell us to calm down, and I had my back towards the goal, and I seen this look on her face like, you're done. But I didn't realize at the time what she meant. She had this look, and man, Daddy kicked me right up in the butt like as hard as he could. Kicked me. Well, he couldn't lift that high because I'm 6 foot and he's like 5 something. And so I come to the house, and he come in there, and he said, he shut the game down. And he come back in there, and he said, I told you to do whatever you want to do besides holler. And he said, she can't take it. Don't go back outside. So I got my butt kicked. So he was pretty tough. Mama would probably sit there all the time and tell him. And he used to say this all the time. We'd do something. She said, wait till your daddy gets home. So we were all a little timid, because Daddy was a pretty tough dude. And, really tough dude. And so we would, every time she told us that, we'd go hide for 2 hours till he got off work, because we knew he was getting a beating when he got home. Is that how it went, Daddy?
Yeah.
Huh?
Most certainly.
Yeah. He was tough, though. Tough.
Well,
I couldn't stand squealing. You squeal, I can't. You're going to get a beating.
that sounds
If
like
you
me.
squeal, you better be hurt.
You can give me a reason to
I
cry.
better see blood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, while we're sitting here on the topic, and while we just got done talking about him, Clay Earls is a massive figure in the history of NASCAR, and you all had a very personal relationship with him. So, aside from getting mad at you for throwing rocks at his ducks, what did you think about Clay? What kind of a person was he?
I can't tell you.
Really?
He was tough. No, he was a tough individual.
So,
Like I said, everybody was scared to death of him, but I wasn't scared of him. He'd tell me something, and I'd tell him he's wrong.
Daddy was the only one that would tell him, and that's why Clay respected him so much.
The first day I went to work down there, he was explaining it to the boys how how a motor works with the charger that charges it.
alternator.
Yeah, alternator. Yeah.
And he was telling that, and he said, "That's right, isn't it, Albert?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, you tell me how it is." I told him. He said, "I guess you're right."
But Daddy, a lot of people, because of his statue and who he was, they would agree with him. And Daddy, that's one thing I could tell you, his credibility.
He humbled him.
He called it out, and then when he showed him that it was wrong, Clay couldn't argue the point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So then he would come to Daddy and ask him what he thought. Before, he would just tell him, and Daddy was like, "We shouldn't be doing it that way." And I know my uncle, Henry Williams, also worked down there, and so Henry and Daddy kind of had some of the same way of thinking. So and I think you had a middleman in between it all too. Yeah, Pete was there for a long time, wasn't he?
Pete was just there.
Yeah, Pete was there. Yeah,
Kind of like Bodine. He's just there.
sometimes that's the way it works, right?
Yep.
I'd be folding shirts and putting them up in 12 packs or 20 folds. Start with 20 folds. I had them. And then whatever was next, it'd be 12 and 8 and 6. And I could look at it and know how many I had. And put them in a box to take them to the stand, and he was counting and trying to close the box. And he'd fool with the box for 30 minutes closing it up, top of it. He couldn't do nothing. Nothing. That old.
So they put him with you so you could train him, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Well, and he put him with me because he couldn't put him nowhere else. he wanted to be down there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And people come down and he said, I done so and so, and this is it. And I stand there behind him, and he turned around and said to me, he said, well, actually, he did it. I did.
Yeah, he just wanted to be a part of it. But, Pete, I like old Pete. Didn't Pete just pass?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
So,
yeah.
So you're the general manager of Cincinnati Martinsville Speedway, but before you got, you didn't get that gig until, Chris, you said before 52?
Yeah, but Daddy.
So the pipe fitting was first.
Daddy was all W.H. Williams Plumbing and Heating. Daddy started, as you've seen, he started at an early age before, he got out of school. And then Daddy, like I said, my granddaddy retired at 52. It was probably in the 70s, right, Dad?
Yeah.
And this was after you built all of the Rafford Arsenal and the hospital and some schools and whatever. Then you went
Rafford Arsenal. That's
it's huge.
Oh yeah.
Daddy spent a lot of time. We used to go up there and can't remember who it was. We used to kick the footballs at Virginia Tech. Who was that guy up there that we went up there and hung out with? I can't remember his name now. Who?
Where?
Up at Virginia Tech when you was building the Rafford Arsenal. The boy you used to stay with all the time up there. I can't remember his name.
Huh.
Yeah, if I wouldn't have said it, you wouldn't have remembered. But anyway,
you say Clint?
I can't remember.
He worked with Dad.
It was Clint.
And we'd go up there and stay because he lived up there.
Yeah. And anyway, had some cool times. And then Daddy went to work for Wells and Donovan right afterwards. And, a lot of people I talked to today, the engineers and some of the counties and stuff talked about, Daddy done things that a lot of people never seen before. I was talking about welding some copper and doing some other things that was just unheard of and that people remember that stuff today. But Dad had done it for a while, and then he went to work at the racetrack for quite a long time, and then he come to work with me out on the road, worked on Earnhardt's trailer and had a lot. He drove our coach for a while. I had a coach out there for a while, and he drove it everywhere. Had a good time. We even went on a few hunting trips and stuff with it, but we spent a lot of time, trying to enjoy the United States when we can in between races, because we didn't come back.
Yeah, once she was on the road,
once you was on the road, you kind of stayed on the road, and Mom would always laugh because said if Daddy didn't live on 220, he didn't have a big map. He didn't know. He may not know where the race was, and I say that because I bring it up. It's kind of funny. So we were in Darlington, and I had already left because I had to be down there for a meeting, and Daddy had come down later. And Daddy called me, and he said, "Where you at?" I said, "Well, you remember they moved the front stretch to the back stretch, vice versa at Darlington." And he said, "I'm on the wrong side. I'll come around." So about 25 minutes later, he called me on the phone again. He's like, "Hey, where you at?" I said, "Parking trailers." I said, "You're probably on the outskirts because, at Darlington, there's that field, and you got to run down that road." And back then, we had to drive down through it, and he was in the coach. And I'm like, "Just come down that road, and I'll see you, and I'll park the coach right here in the middle of the souvenir trailers, and that'll be where I stay in the coach." About 30 minutes later, it called, and he had that voice of, I'm getting ticked off. and I was like, "Daddy," he says, "Chris, I've been around this thing 3 times. I don't see a souvenir trailer at all." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Tell me what you see." He said, "I'm sitting right here beside this big rock." I said, "Well, Dad, it'd be great if you was at the right track. You're in Rockingham." I said, "We're in Darlington." He said, "How do I get there?" I said, "Well, get back on 1, drive south for about 40 minutes, and you'll be at the track." And so he showed up about 40 minutes later.
So Darlington's only 40 minutes from Rockingham?
You ever take a few? It's
Well,
not.
probably not that far. Probably about 30 some.
When you come out on one there, you can. I'd say an hour and a half at the most, but I'd say it depends on traffic. Now that they got the way it's set up now, I'd say so. It's probably about an hour.
Well, I know
45
I know it's 3 hours for me from right here to get to Darlington, and I used to drive Rockingham in about an hour and 45. So, I mean, it's probably right at an hour.
Because you can get to Darlington off 95 down there south of where they built the Buc-ee's, and you can get to it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Why do you always reference everything by their location to a Buc-ee's?
Well, I mean, Buc-ee's are great, but yeah,
they're not a sponsor, so
They could
if they
could be.
Yeah, if
they could be.
should reach out to him as much as he is, you know,
the best brisket in the world.
Yeah.
But
But so then, Daddy was out there for such a long time, and there's people today, don't matter if it's Dover, Michigan, or wherever, that wants that he retired from us. You got that on the other part, right? You're going to put in, so I don't need to talk through
well,
it.
I don't know if we'll put it in or not. I mean,
I think you should. It's a lot of
we
good
can
stuff.
do that.
But anyway, so once he, retired, there's people all the time that call me and say, "How's your dad? What's going on?" And it's just, they're everywhere. I mean, people in every state that I went in for years after would ask, how he was doing, and they remembered him quite a bit because he was that personality on the souvenir trailer that he was going to bring a little bit of fun out in you, and people like gravitating towards him. It was pretty cool. You like being out there too, didn't you, Dad?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, interaction with the people and the drivers and the teams and the track officials and stuff. It was a fun time for sure.
And racing itself, if you're a fan of it, it almost becomes a drug when you're in the loop because you get addicted to it, and not in a bad way. You just are so used to it. The camaraderie that comes with racing and being out, it becomes a family, and following that around, I could see that interaction being you want it, you love it, and going back, I can see how that would all work.
Well, I think it started too when Daddy was, doing the Bass Federation for 5 years and doing all that stuff, even fishing with Ken and Ray because their personalities was different. What was it y'all did to Ken that day that Ken was catching all the big fish? And you and Ray, every time he'd catch them, he'd want to put them on the stringer and put them on the side of the boat. What did y'all do
That
to
was me.
That was you?
I was catching all the fish. I caught his limit, and Ray's, both of them's finished the limit, and mine too. A small one, big small one. And I was handling them, and he had a big
String.
thing in the well where his stern wheel was where he put his fish. Well, he'd stick it down in, and then I'd go back to fishing. And when he'd get it and throw it and put it back.
You was catch. I mean, they didn't catch a thing, right?
No. And
He was catching them all.
come home, and I went around the neighborhood and got everybody. I said, I want to show y'all something what I've done today. Opened it up and didn't have a fish one.
When he was handing them to them, they was putting them back in.
Really? What'd they do that for?
Because they didn't want him to brag.
So what's your secret to fishing?
Secret, you just get in there and fish. Just keep on going. I like to get on a bank, especially if it's a lake I've never been on. Find a pretty good looking place and just start fishing and fish all day, not turning the motor on.
He gets mad at me. I get impatient about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, we got to do something.
I do say that a lot. I do. But I'm telling you, man, watching Daddy over the years fishing, I mean, everybody knew how good he was. And it was kind of funny because, Daddy talked just a little bit earlier about everybody had patches on and he thought he was in the wrong place or he was getting beat. Daddy come back home, and I remember as a youngster, he had this boat. And nobody around here had stickers and patches and none of that stuff. And Daddy builds this boat, and he's got American Bassman down the side of it. And he's got an Evel Knievel jumpsuit. And I'll never forget, I'm like, what is going on? Because nobody else had that. And Daddy would win, and he'd win again, and he'd win again. And I'll never forget, I can't remember who asked him, but I was listening. And he said, why are you doing that? He said, because they're more worried about me than worrying about what they should be doing. They were more thinking about what I was doing instead of what they should be doing.
Fair enough.
And so I thought that was really cool until they started changing his name. And I said, what's that? Because he won so much, they started calling him the American Bastard instead of the American Bassman. And I said, Lord, what is going on? But you probably fished like that probably about 8 or 9 years until you bought your new boat, didn't you? And then you didn't wear the jumpsuit no more. What happened?
I don't know, just got rid of it.
Just got rid of it? They started winning? They started catching up?
His jumpsuit wound up, had splits at the bottom, had Henry County Bassmasters wrote in it, had a red streak down the leg, had everything on it.
I mean, it was
It was
pure.
fancy.
It was fancy.
So do you still get to fish?
Yeah, well, I did until about 2-3 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, Daddy had a kidney transplant, and the kidney failed, and so he's been going back to dialysis. So his times, changed to what he's doing. But we won a couple of tournaments. I think it was last year, the year before last, at Bugs, and we haven't been. Now that I think about it, we hadn't been as good since I've been running the boat. I just kind of thought about it. Maybe it's just me. I didn't think about it this way.
It seems like he hadn't quite passed the secret down.
Well, he's passed it. I don't think I'm listening. I don't think I'm a good student yet. But the problem with me is I like fishing. I'm a competitor, as a fisherman, and I know all the places Daddy's went. But like I said, he looks at things totally different. Where I'm a little bit more impatient. So I think I need to become a better patient fisherman to be as good as what he was. But
I'm not sure if patience is in your DNA at this point in time.
I don't think
You have lived a high place life for so long. I don't think it's there. I'm amazed you can hunt. I really am. I'm amazed you can sit in a tree stand.
I love it. I mean, Daddy.
Yeah, that's true. Because you would think.
Yeah. Well, it was different back when I first started learning. Because Daddy took me up to the mountains. I'm trying to think. Right past Paint Bank. I can't even remember the name of the town. It was outside of Covington or wherever it was.
Clifton Forge.
Yeah, it was about where it was.
Hot Springs.
Yeah,
Blacksburg.
Oh.
And we had a place up there. Ken and them was there, and I mean I didn't know what to expect. And Daddy didn't cook here. Mama would always do the cooking, but we went up there. And Daddy was making steaks, and he was making this onion that had sugar and butter in it that it would have killed any human being, but it tastes so good. And I'm saying, I'm seeing a different part of something. I mean, because I never had hunted, because I'd always played sports, and I didn't get to do that. I mean, I played basketball, baseball, everything, football up to a certain point. I made the tennis team and never got to play, but it's a long story. But anyway.
Tennis?
Yeah, I can hit a tennis ball every once in a while.
I think that's a podcast in itself right there.
Probably. And so Dad took me up there, and it was the camaraderie, the what happened. I think Ken, the very first time I went up there, we weren't supposed to have. I didn't, but we weren't supposed to have 4-wheelers on the national forest, and Ken got caught, and I had killed a deer, but I hadn't tagged it yet because it was the first one I ever killed. And the game warden just tore us up, and I'm like, man, we're lethal. I mean, we're illegal. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the whole situation, it was so much fun. And then they started telling me all the stories about Dad hunting, which was unbelievably great. So,
let's hear a couple of these hunting stories.
Oh, we're gonna give you a couple. So I tell them about the one where y'all took the camper up there. You and Ken and Ray.
Shot there?
Yeah. Tell them about that one.
We parked the camper, and they took off up in the woods. And I got my gun out. It was 30-06 on that. And I cocked it. And I said, that didn't cock. So I reached down and pulled the trigger. I had to lay it on the sofa, pointed out, and it wasn't cocked. So I cocked it again, and said, I didn't hear that click. I said, it ain't right. I pulled it and I shot through the side of the camera.
Yeah.
Scared Ray to death. And he went, come there and run outside. He come in for inside first, but he went outside and said, "Are you the luckiest?" We barred the camp.
Barred.
That's a great story to explain to
Oh,
somebody.
it gets better.
And he said, "You're the luckiest person there was." He said, "It's a little bitty hole out there you can't hardly see." He says, "We can put a reflector on it, and Ken will never know the difference." So we come in and we pulled the cushion back from where that bullet went through. When he pulled the cushion back, the plywood was busted all to pieces.
Bigger than a basketball.
So I fixed it all. And Curtis Fisher wanted to buy a camper. And he come down here after it, and he pulled the thing back. He didn't see that. He didn't see the hole. He said, "What happened?" I said, "I fixed it." He said, "I want it now."
He didn't want
He said, "I want it the way you fixed it."
it. He wanted it with the hole in
The
it.
hole in it and everything, so I remember it.
So did you go get 30-06 and blow a hole back in it?
So, Dad, tell them about one of your first hunting trips up there when it was so cold and you was wearing the snowman suit. Tell them.
Oh,
No, you got to tell them. Nope, you're going to tell them. You got to tell them. You got to tell them.
It was about 0 the whole week.
Yeah.
And I had to poop. And I squatted down. It had a helmet.
Get a hoodie. He
And I
grabbed
did.
it. He grabbed it.
When I got up,
Tucked it.
it was full of poop. I pooped in it instead of putting it under.
That's not how the story goes. I'm gonna tell it because you ain't telling the whole story. I'm gonna tell it correctly.
Right?
So Daddy had you know how some people hunt. They get that urge after drinking coffee in the morning, so he has to go to the bathroom. So he tucks and tucks and tucks this whole suit to do his business out in the woods. And so he cleans himself up and he hunts the next couple of hours, and everything's cool. So he goes back in at night, and Ken and them and Ray and all the boys hunting has started a fire and stuff, and everybody's taking their suit off and laying them beside the fire because it was wet and cold and everything outside from being so cold. And so Ken says, "Man, what is that smell?" and they were like, "I don't know." And so they got up walking around. They said, "Man, it's getting worse. The hotter it gets, it's getting worse, So finally, Daddy went over there. He looked inside it, and he had pooped in that hood. And it had froze, but then it was thawing back out.
Oh.
So he had to take it out and clean it. And so I'll never forget, I think Danny Dickerson and a bunch of them was talking about how bad the smell was. And I wasn't there then. I was playing ball then, so I didn't get to witness that. But that was a camp story that lasted every year and retold every year from time after time.
You get yourself in those crazy predicaments, and you gotta go. And
Yeah, I'll bet.
So did you like hunting or fishing more? If you had one choice, what would you prefer?
Fishing.
You like fishing better
Yeah.
because of the weather?
Well, partly, but I just like to fish. I've always liked to fish. Ever since Ken started me fishing. And he's the one who got me started fishing.
See, that's me. We grew up on the farm, and we had all that land down there and all the hunting and stuff. And my brother really liked the hunting, and I just really liked fishing. I don't know what it was. I guess I'm just more of a summertime kind of guy. And you go down the riverbank, throw in a line, hang out with your buddies, and that's just kind of what it was about. I mean, I've hunted, a few times here and there, sitting up in some tree stands, but I don't know. I just enjoy the warm weather and drinking a beer on the riverbanks.
Well, the wintertime is the best time to fish.
It is. I'm
Yes.
just too damn cold to go out there and do it.
yeah, I look outside. I like to look out the window when it's cold outside. This is my time of the year, so I was never much of a hunter.
No, we love it. We go. I've been going, since I was 14 or 15. Got introduced to it, and me and Daddy's went off and we fished and hunted in Iowa, and you know we've hunted quite a few places, Texas. We've had some good times. We've really enjoyed those deals. Daddy always wanted to kill a drop tine deer, and he killed one of Tommy Teague's. The thing's humongous. It scores, I think it was 220 something. I can't remember. Got a big old drop tine on it. It's down here in the garage, and
So big game hunting.
yeah, big game. He has an elk on it. I mean, his body. I mean, because elk, you're walking 18 to 20 miles a day, and he can't really do that now, and so that's something
I can't do that now. So elk hunting's out the door for me.
Yeah, we probably missed on that a little bit. Do what? 6 elk. I've killed about 12 or 13 elk now. I killed 6 or 7 on Realtree, and I killed a couple that wasn't filmed, and I've got 2 or 3 mounted down here in Daddy's shop. Biggins, 300 class. But Daddy's made some great shots in his time, and we've laughed at some of them. We were down at the Shelton farm. Daddy was sighting in a gun, and I don't know what you did. I don't know if it was double loaded, the bullet was double loaded, or the.
I reckon it was.
Yeah, I can't remember, but me and Mark and we were all down there, and Daddy was sighting in the gun, and for some reason, I mean, it was so loud. I mean, you said it was the hardest kick like a mule. When you shot it, what happened?
The bottle never moved. Didn't have nothing in it. And I said, I didn't miss that. I don't miss nothing. And I went up there and picked it up and had 2 holes in it all the way through. So it was double loaded.
You hit it so daggone clear, it didn't even move. It just went straight through.
Yeah, but we're going to tell you what happened. The reason we went and looked is because the scope hit him in the head, and it lodged his feet up underneath the.
Oh, I was up at.
That's a different time.
Yeah.
So what happened that time?
I was shooting at the target, and I pulled the trigger, and the gun come out of my hand like it pulled my nipple on me. I had a coat on, and see where it was.
You was leaning across the truck, right?
Yeah,
And you was shooting at something, but you was
I was shooting at the can
right. But was it a barn behind you, or what was behind you?
behind me, man. But when I pulled the trigger, it drove me under the cabin.
Good Lord.
I mean, it was probably evidently somebody double loaded that shell.
And you was
still
in
hit
for
the target. Still hit the target. Just flung you backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun times hunting. I mean, every year for.
I never really went out there and did a lot of the hunting. I did it sometimes, but still the camaraderie was there because everybody would be at the hunting cabin.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't go out hunting, I'd wake up there, fix a big breakfast. Everybody come in from the morning hunt, eat a little bit of lunch or whatever, watch a little bit of football. They'd go back out, fix some dinner. Hang out. I just like being around all the guys and kind of doing their thing. And I love the meat. I'm like, man, everybody out here is going to go kill 2 or 3 deer this year, so I'll just get a little bit from here, a little bit from there. I love it, though, and I can understand where it builds those relationships and that kind of father-son deal. And with the fishing and the hunting, you can't beat it.
Nah, I can see that.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's who you're hunting with.
The bonding.
It's having a good time. You know, if you kill something or catch something or whatever, it's kind of irrelevant. It's just who you're spending your time
And
with.
y'all went hunting with a lot of really fun people. I know, Chris, you've told us before some of your hunting stories, and actually go on YouTube and watch one of the Realtree's Outdoors. You can watch those episodes. But taking your father around, who's the coolest person you all ever went hunting with together?
We've had Earnhardt down here before. Buckshot Jones one year. It was really fun. Him and DePietro, we hunted in South Carolina together. I'm trying to think of who else. We've hunted with a ton of people. We had Hank up at Charlie's a couple years ago. I mean, Bobby Labonte's hunted with us, and Harvick's hunted with us. I mean, we've had some really fun times, you know, not only here but in other places as well. You know, we've forged a lot of friendship, you know, in the hunting grounds and fishing grounds. But I mean, you know, the cool thing about hunting starts with back then, about the time the racing season's over. And so, I mean,
I wonder if that's kind of on purpose.
Transition from one to the other.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I have a lot of great stories with Dale and myself hunting. But I mean, you know, it was always, as soon as the season was over, you know, we were in San Angelo, Texas hunting, and you know, those stories are fun. I know Mom and Dad got to go out there and spend some time in the same place we hunted, and I think Daddy got a speeding ticket going through a school zone driving out there. But
I was thinking about all the guys you said that y'all hunted with together, and all those are alpha male personalities. I mean, I imagine the competition level in that kind of situation had to be high. I mean, was it a competition, a rivalry?
always.
Yeah, how did your dad deal with all those personalities?
Daddy done pretty good. Daddy fits in with about anybody. We went to South Carolina and we hunted a bunch.
I'll say, if you stand up to Clay Earls, you can probably handle with anybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, your personality, I mean, you know, we have it. The whole family has it. I mean, you know, you're within 7 foot of somebody, we're going to say hello to them or at least strike a conversation. Daddy has that same personality. So, I mean, everywhere he go, you know, people gravitate towards him. And
You get it honest.
yeah, I get it honest. And so it's kind of fun because, you know, people don't forget that kind of thing and forget, you know, just treating them with respect, and you know, that carries over a lot. And so I don't know where else Daddy's hunted besides Texas and Iowa and South Carolina and North Carolina. I don't know where else you've hunted now that off the top of my head. Yeah.
Fish too with them.
Yeah, fishing is just, you know, there's a lot of great people we fish with, and you know, a lot of people that's came and gone too that we used to fish with. Some great fishermen in this area. I mean, I'm talking about probably the best of the best is right here in this area, and we have the lakes for it. I mean, a lot of people don't have as many lakes as we have to fish. They have to travel, you know. But we
can be in two different ones.
Oh, in no
well, at least
time.
in Rocky Mountain, I've got one this way and one that way.
Well, that's something I'm interested in hearing about, like, when Smith Mountain Lake first opened up. What was it like down there? Because I know, Bodine, you're a huge lake goer.
Yeah.
And it's much of a pain in the ass to go out there now. I don't even like going out there. But
What's your memory of Smith Mountain getting built up? You know, just starting. What's your memory
There
of
were no
that?
houses at all.
Yeah, that is
beautiful.
Yeah,
Everything is the whole banks everywhere is lined with houses, and if you fished a plug, it had 3 plugs on hooks on it. You throw it out there and catch 3 fish.
that was when fishing
Same
was great.
time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
The striper bass, is that what you always would go down there and fish for?
No,
Striper?
No.
Really?
Bass.
Just straight bass?
Yeah, but I did fish for stripers some. I like that too. I like any kind of fishing.
Yeah.
Anything pull my line, I like it.
That's
Well,
right.
striper is a little bit. It's kind of like on Smith Mountain. It's kind of like catfish, and you just kind of throw a line out there and troll around. But bass fishing, you actually got to put in a little bit of work for that.
Yes, you do.
And patience.
Patience.
So
You might throw it, you see one, and throw at it 25 times, and the 26th time you'll hit.
irritating just enough. Irritating just enough.
Yeah.
I remember when you was telling me about Bugs Island. When you start fishing bugs, you know, you would go back into some of those creeks, and you would tell me that y'all would fish. The creek wouldn't be 20 yards wide or whatever, and you said you'd fish over here, and they would swirl behind you to come and hit it.
Yeah.
When you first started, that's how aggressive they were at Bugs Island.
You go down there and just kill them anytime. Big fish.
What's your biggest string ever?
42 pounds.
Five fish, 42 pounds. Good God.
Well, you were telling a story earlier about how you were out there fishing with your buddies, and you caught everything that could be caught, and they weren't catching a daggone thing. How is that? I mean, for anybody out there that don't know much about fishing, you would assume if 5 people out there on a boat and they all toss in a line, everybody's going to be getting something. But for you to be the only one to be yanking them in, what separated you from everybody else?
I was fishing every bit of the bank.
Yeah, they weren't.
I was sitting on the front of the boat, and they was in the boat, and I'm hitting everything first. And who's first, most times, catches the most fish. And the guy in the back don't catch none, you know.
Yeah, but back then, y'all didn't really fish teams. You did, but you fish individual, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of different nowadays. Well, not on TV, but I'm talking about in the tournament. So the fishing's a little bit different. So is that your favorite lake of all time, Bugs, or do you like one?
I like Gaston.
You like Gaston? Yeah,
Now, Gaston is half heated, isn't it?
I don't know if
At least it is these days. Like if that's up in kind of like north of here in like Culpeper.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, no, that's Lake Anna I'm thinking
Yeah,
about.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
going to say, I didn't know Gaston.
And High Code down in Danville is heated as
It's
well.
heated as well.
You can go there in October and November, jump in the water. It's like a hot tub.
Yeah.
It's
So how do they heat the water in a lake?
It runs through a coal plant, and it cools all the equipment, and then they
It's
shoot
the
water.
the heat's the byproduct.
Yeah, and then they shoot the water back out in the lake. So you can go up there and sit right there at the mouth, and it's like a hot tub.
Yeah.
Well-
So, Daddy, was it Gaston where you and Sam Rush and all y'all was out in the middle talking, and he said he couldn't catch anything or something like that, and you was showing him what to use, and you flipped over there at his boat out in the middle of the lake? Is that the one where you caught that big fish?
Oh, yeah, it was Ken.
It was Ken. I thought it was Sam
Yeah.
Rush. I'm sorry.
I told him where to fish,
Right,
and the hump out in the middle.
right.
And I come up when I got there. I said, how many you caught? He said, ain't that a strike. I said, I know you ain't. You're sitting in the right place. So I told him exactly where to set his boat. And his first cast, he caught one. And he was happy then. And he kept catching it. But you got to be there, and you got to be wanting to bite. Chris dropped a worm right on top of a fish. You can see it. We got the equipment, and it just shake it off.
Yeah. They got to want to hit, don't they?
But it seems like if you got guys, if you go out there and you're catching everything and nobody's catching anything, it seems like at least they got the pride not to sit there and take your spot. Because I can tell you, when I was always fishing, I remember plenty of times go down to the cabin. We'd sit out there on the rapids at the cliffs on the other side of the property. I don't know if you ever went down there, Bodine. We sit there, we all cast out a line. I'd cast one out this one spot, and I'd reel something in about 2 seconds. Before I could get my line in and get that fish pulled up on shore, Alex Hunt done already reeled in real quick, moved all there in my way, and cast right there where I was fishing every single daggone time. And he wouldn't catch a damn thing, and I'd go down here below him, and I'd cast and catch some. I couldn't get it in. There he was again, just taking your spot every single time. So it's good to have friends like that to be prideful enough and competitive to sit there and say, well, I ain't going to take a spot. I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, Daddy's never really, he usually tells everybody what he's fishing with and fishing for. And unlike a lot of other people that would just soon not tell you. But, I mean, he wants everybody to enjoy it. I mean, he's done all his life of fishing, probably opened up half of these lakes around here to fish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he probably wants everybody to enjoy what he's doing. So he's not, And a lot of times people think he was lying. He did tell them exactly what he was doing. They didn't believe you, right? When he was winning the tournaments and stuff. And, but it, like I said, it's the one thing if you ever take somebody fishing, I've said this many a time, you want them to catch fish. Because if you're out there bored, you know what I'm saying? It ain't no fun. You ain't going to do it again. So, I mean, you got to want to do it.
When you take somebody with you, the only thing you want is to beat them.
True.
You don't want to let them beat you.
Competitive. Well, for me, I think I'd be a great fisherman because I'm as patient as anybody. I mean, I can sit right here, and Kelly can tell you I'm too patient. Like when I'm sitting outside, I'll sit out there for hours. She'll be texting me, "You coming in tonight?" No, sit right here.
Yeah,
I'm good for hours. I don't have to do nothing but sit in the swing out on the car porch just like this. I'm fine. I don't need nothing. I don't need anything.
That's what I like about fishing. And
I think that's why I say I would like it.
Yeah.
I always growing up on the fishing bank, sewing stuff in. It's a good time to build relationships with people, and you learn about a lot about somebody when you're out there fishing, because people end up talking to you about and you learn so much just from something as simple. And it's also good life skills. We look around today, and I mean, the world is going insane. Yes. And you've been around here for 80 years now, and you've seen this country take wild progressions and wild leaps. Something as simple as fishing can keep you alive a lot longer than somebody else.
Ain't that the truth?
And I got to think, I would have probably been I'd probably enjoy fishing with you, because I could sit there all day. We just sit in the boat and keep casting. I'd be fine right there all day.
Well, Mama outfished him half the time. Mama sitting right here listening to the story. I'll never forget one time that she was fishing a plug, and I think she caught 2 big fish on each treble, and she kept telling you she couldn't reel it in.
Smallmouth.
2 smallmouth.
All of them citations. Both of them.
Both of them. And she was complaining because she couldn't reel, and she asked Daddy to help. He said, "I ain't helping you." Ain't that what you told her?
I said, "You called him?
You reel him in?" And then when he got up there, he's like, "No wonder you couldn't reel him in, because you had 2 citation smallmouth on each treble." But there's been some lot of fun catches. And Daddy, one time we were fishing at Smith Mountain, and when I was growing up, I wanted to learn how it feels, and nobody can tell you how a fish feels on your hook. You have to learn that.
You learn it, yeah.
And I was asking Daddy, and I don't know what it was. He set the hook, and he had just been telling us what to feel. And Mama says, "Yeah, look at you. And you'd have hung up." He said, "I ain't hung up." And he said, "Yes, you are." So they went into a 10-minute argument on the boat about he knows he got a strike. And like, "Why you hung up?" Well, finally, whatever he was hung on started coming to the top. And it was a big tree. I'm talking about a huge tree. And he got up there, and the fish was on the hook, still hooked into the tree. And boy, we got the lesson that day. I told you I know what a strike is, and it was fun. And we were talking about it the other day. We were at Philpott, and we were fishing, and it's always deer going across, or you see a bear here or whatever. And my brother was sitting on the I think he was sitting on the motor back then. There's 5 of us. That's all you can have in a boat, but we all tried to spread out, and every other cast, Daddy would slap one of us across the head with the lure or whatever. So we were trying to get away from him. And Mark got hung up. Daddy was, you got hung up, man. It was, you got to back the boat up. You're wasting fishing time. Daddy backs up, and we get the lure out, and I bet you we didn't move 5 feet. And the biggest oak tree I ever seen fell right where we were just at. I mean, why we didn't die is unbelievable.
Missed us probably 3 to 5 feet.
It was the crazy. It hit. I have no idea. It's the crazy.
What lake was this at?
Philpott. At Philpott. Big, huge.
What caused it to fall? No lightning strike?
It got rotted.
I got rotten, I guess. But, I mean, dude, if Daddy would have waited 20 seconds or 10 seconds by not going back and get it, or if Mark couldn't have got it out, it would have went right through the boat. It's the craziest thing. But, I mean, there's been a lot of things. We had a dog. We found a dog one time, Pepper, up there at Smith Mountain, a Beagle. Best dog we ever had. I think did you try to shoot a jet ski one time when they was too close to you? A boat sunk us one time. I think you got the gun out to shoot them, and you didn't ever fire, but you wanted to, didn't you?
Yeah. They ticked you off that much.
Yeah.
But we used to go up. We used to ski back when we first started. Daddy always fished, but when the family got together, we'd always go up Goose Point or whatever, and we'd learn how to ski, and we'd have a good time up there. And Daddy let me and Mama and a few people go out and take some folks out one time, and we ran out of gas, and that was a bad learning lesson, because we ran out like mile marker number 5 or 6, and we pretty much had to push it all the way back. It was bad. You don't push your boat from the water. What you do is you push off the boat to jump in the water to push it that way, because we didn't have the trolling motor charged at the time. It was not a good day. But I mean, a lot of learning lessons. Just from fishing and being on the lake. It's
lessons that can't be taught. They have to be learned the hard way.
Yeah, That's an understatement. Very, very true understatement.
So, your wife's sitting here. How long have y'all been married?
62 years.
Wow.
61 or 62?
He just rounded up.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, that is an all.
How did you do it? Stay together for 61 years. I mean, I know you want to shoot him every once in a while, right? It's been fun. It's been fun. I think about all the times, we would come home, Mama, and she'd be working, home in tears, and, Daddy'd be working before the track or in and after the track. Me and Kim would come home, and, we had chores to do or whatever if we weren't playing sports. And it would be fun time. And then when Dad and Mom got together, it was always something going on. Generally, it was something to do with a gun. I was thinking about the time Daddy bought us a BB gun, and Daddy was loading it, showing us how to shoot it. And Daddy was sitting there on the couch, and back then we had like a storm door, where you raise it up and down. And Mama's car is parked the same place back then, and Daddy was shooting out the door. It was raised about 2 inches. He was shooting out, pinging the BBs off the front of the car headlights. And he'd been doing it for like 25, 30 minutes. Well, Mama finally come through and was like, "What are you doing? Shooting a car? You ain't shooting my car." They all got in this big argument, and Daddy's laughing. He cocks the BB gun, and when he shoots the next time, he hit the bottom of the pane and shattered the whole door. No, tell us that story, Dad. When you was showing me and Mark and all of us how to load the gun and the pistol, you was sitting here in the living room. When you was showing us how it's loaded.
That's when two people, man and his wife, was come in.
Yeah.
I had a pistol, still do. There's a squeeze off. So the police said, in the back of the holder, it has to be in before the fire.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, when you get a hold of it like that, you got it in.
Yep.
Well, I was pulling the trigger, everything. This woman will know everything about it. So I was telling her, and she got out. I went and sat in some place, and I thought I hadn't loaded the gun. And she come back and she said, "I still don't understand it." And I started and I pulled the trigger and shot a hole.
It's still in there.
Yeah, we left it for memory.
Mark hit the floor, thought his hit, and Chris jumped.
Yeah, well,
So you've had quite a few accidental discharges in your time.
Yeah.
Well, me and you the same. I think
At least I was in there shooting in the air.
Yeah.
That's why you teach everybody new to guns. You never point it at anybody or anything because you never know what crazy stuff will happen.
So how many kids did you all have? It's Chris, and how many brothers and sisters?
One each. You said you didn't have any? Mama had them, right? Yeah, so Mark, Kim, and myself.
So there's 3 of you.
Yeah.
So out of your 3 children, who was your favorite, and why is it Chris?
Do not do that. Dude, do not do that. My sister, my brother, myself, look, we're all even.
Competitors.
We're all even.
I know there's got to be
even
competition.
All even in life.
None of them won't take nothing.
No.
Kim liked to kill Mark. Hit him in the stomach.
Yep.
He picked at it and she stopped that.
Yeah.
She hit him in the stomach.
Oh, yeah. Knocked the breath out of him. He quit picking on
He
him.
went to Barbara when we go to hospital. He was dying.
So I sit here and I'm seeing some memorabilia on a windowsill right here. It's a cigarette. It looks like a cigarette. A Winston matchbox.
Yeah.
Sitting right there on the windowsill, and that's got to be from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, Daddy. Daddy's got a lot of stuff that the tornado didn't take away. Down in the shop.
That's right. The tornado come through here, right?
Yeah, it actually hit the shop. It actually took the shop over top of this house and landed it right there in the middle of 220.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I forgot about the tornado hit the Speedway. I wouldn't even put that together.
And then those, the roof on that thing was the
Beams.
truck beams.
Yeah.
Was steel. And it was 42 foot long across it. So a hangover on each side. A foot hangover. And it lifted that whole thing, all them beams was 70 foot long, and carried it right over the house and set it right out there in the middle of the road, block broke line.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were in Michigan.
And never crooked the vents going out the roof.
They just took it clean off and set it over in the
Yeah.
middle of
Yeah. So we were in Michigan. We were racing in
I
Michigan.
can't remember what year was this. Can anybody refresh my memory?
74.
No. 93. 93.
Wow.
93.
I mean, 94.
Was it-
Well, it was 94.
Was it that long
It was not-
ago?
I don't remember.
It was 93 or 94. Yeah. So
93 Michigan.
See if I
yeah.
can find
So we were in Michigan, and we get a phone call because Josh was here. He was in school, and so Mama was watching Josh, our son. And Mama calls me at like 2:00 in the morning, wakes me up. Hey, I just want you to know we had some bad weather. had some weather come through. Didn't tell me nothing about how bad it was. Just said we had bad weather. We're all okay. Just wanted you to know. So I'm like, what'd you call me for? My mind was, what did you call me for then? So we had just installed some TVs and stuff in our souvenir trailers. And so we got up at 5 because if you wasn't at the racetrack at 5:45 in Michigan back in the day, you didn't get to the track. So we got there. So we had a few minutes before we opened up, 30 minutes before we opened up. We, cut the satellites on. Satellite, finds what they're looking for back in the day. And we're sitting there and CNN comes on. Tornado, Martinsville Speedway. And they show a picture of the shop laying in the road. And I'm like, what? National.
And it's going through your mind now. Your mom called last night and said we had some weather.
Yeah.
Not the fact that the shop was sitting in the middle of 220.
Right. So I call. I'm like, what? And she's like, oh, yeah, the shop blew over the house and the tree, blah, blah, blah. And she said, but we're okay. She said, I didn't want to scare you. I'm like, well, you could have told me a tornado hit. You could have told me the shop was laying in the middle of the road. Yeah, any of that. So we go to the race, and I'm like, I'm driving all the way home. So, after the race, back then, it started at 12, and, it was an 8-hour drive. And I got home in the middle of the night and got up the next day, and every neighbor was over here. And, they were showing me everything was happening. It threw a brick from the shop in that tree. It was embedded for years. It may even still be there, right? Is it still there? Oh, it's the tree. It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but it was flush.
Flush.
Just like it's made
In the tree. Flush into the tree.
Y'all got some pictures of that somewhere.
Yeah,
I
we
guarantee.
got pictures, and it was just crazy to see but I had sides of Earnhardt's car that went missing. I mean, just a lot of other crazy stuff.
Well, being here in Martinsville, I guarantee you some of that Earnhardt stuff probably made its way to a pawn shop around here. Somebody found it and said, man, I can get $50.
So here's the date.
Yeah, when is it?
August 18th, 1994.
There you go, 94.
That was 2 days before Ernie Irvin had his bad crash in Michigan.
Yeah, and that would have put it in the same time frame. So here's what's interesting. One of the headlines says, the storm toppled telephone lines, power poles, causing 2 industrial parks to close for the lack of electricity and giving 932 workers the day off, authorities said. It forced Virginia State Police to close US 220 for 7 hours because of debris, primarily the remains of a beauty salon lifted off its foundation
My sister
and dropped in the northbound lanes at Martinsville Speedway's entrance.
There you go. There you have it.
I mean, that's amazing nobody was hurt. I mean, God.
Well, Mama heard it coming.
Did it sound like a freight train?
Yeah, and she grabbed Josh and threw him in the floor and laid on him. I guess she didn't think that it was going to take her off of him. And anyway, it said it was gone that quick. They can't hear you. You're talking, but they can't hear you. If you want to come over here, come here. Come here. If you want to talk.
Yeah, let's get our seat in here. Actually, I was sitting there while we were sitting there recording the show, going through my mind. I said, you know what? We got to come back down here and get Mama on. I said, that would probably even be a bigger show.
No, Josh, he sat up in the bed and he said, "What happened, Gran?" And I said, "Honey, I think a tornado come." He said, "Okay, I'm going back to sleep." So he just rolled over, glass all over the bed because it had knocked the windows out. And he just went back to bed and went to sleep.
Well, how did you know that it was a tornado? It's not like we're big on tornadoes around
I heard
here.
It sounded like a
First
jet.
one.
So
It sounded like a jet.
So you had just heard over time that tornadoes sound like that, and when you heard that sound, because tornado, they said a couple happened in Sidnersville not too long ago. I think one took out Tilly Anderson or Anderson's house over there, but they're not very frequent.
That's why Ryan's such a good spotter for Daytona and Talladega. He's bulletproof after living through that. He's calm, cool, and collective. He can survive laying in the middle of a tornado.
Well, not only just survive, but just go right back to sleep afterwards.
Did I say Ryan? I meant Josh. But anyways, he can go right back to sleep. He can spot for 200 laps at Talladega and go take a nap.
Yeah,
they don't do 200 at Talladega, Bodine.
Well,
it's 188.
It's okay. I think Josh, just quickly, he has a lot of that golfer mentality where a lot of things don't irritate him. His heart rate stays the same, and back when he was playing, competitive golf, he just nothing really bothered him, and I think that really carried over to all that. So,
it seems like he gets that honest too. And I can tell by sitting here with you all. I mean, you're the entire family. We've had an opportunity to meet you all here today, and we've met your daughter last week. Didn't really get a chance to talk with her a lot, but just between conversations with your parents right here, it's like you see the world completely go by for all these years, and you just do it from the comfort of your front porch.
Yeah.
And I think that's an ideology, that's a personality right there, and it really shows. It's that nothing really bothers us. We're just gonna sit on the porch, let the world go by, and we'll take it as we come. So it makes sense.
So we're sitting here. You say that sitting on the porch, and that leads me what my thought was. We're sitting here just talking, really. I mean, we may be recording it, but I want to think about all the legends that have sat on this very porch in this same spot and done this exact same thing with y'all through the years.
I appreciate y'all calling me a legend. I've been sitting here for quite some time. No, but there's been.
Y'all caused me to faint again.
Y'all.
I mean, see, that's pretty good, wasn't it?
No, it's.
Who are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about, the Paces, and, we're talking about the Slaughters, and, we're talking about the Ashbys and the Dickersons and the C's. They're the legends that sit here because they're our neighbors. And to be honest with you, we all grew up respecting each other and, rooting for each other. And even though it was competitive on the ball field or competitive on the street, no matter if we had a tornado or no matter if somebody else had an issue or, somebody was drunk falling off the motorcycle, we were there to help
Hold on,
pick them up.
who did that?
Well, Mr. C got a little drunk one night, and he popped a wheelie, and this went here and that went there, and everybody in the neighborhood. I was young, trying to get him calmed down. I think he ended up getting on the bike anyway.
You mean the big C?
Yeah, Mr. C. Yeah, and and we've look. That's the cool thing about the neighborhood, and everybody's got a neighborhood like that. Is there's always something going on, and everybody's a part of it. Because everybody had big families on this street, and I respect every one of them. To this day, Buford he'd bust me and Tim's tail just as quick as anybody else would, and Ken would do the same thing, and back then. Everybody was raising everybody's kids, because if it wasn't what we were supposed to be doing, everybody had their job and making sure it was done right. And, I think about this whole street. Daddy I was just thinking, Papa decided that he was going to be a motorcyclist. I don't know why. And Daddy can tell this story.
He was 65 years old when he started riding a motorcycle.
And that's your dad.
Yeah. And there was always something going on, and I guess Daddy had bought a mini bike, and he went down.
I bought 3 bicycles for them for Christmas. It was Christmas, and he got on. He never rode a bicycle. Never had been on one. and is turning over, falling over. I said, Dad, get off the bikes. The kid's not going to have nothing until Christmas. Made him mad. The next morning, he left and he went uptown and bought a little 50cc Benelli. And when he got on and tried to ride it, but it started down this hill here between the house and the shop. And he opened it wide open. There's a tractor and trailer sitting there. And he went under it. And his head was the first thing it hit. And wide open. And that little old thing would fly. But called up ambulance. I picked him up, put his head in my lap, and he brought his arms up and was trembling. And I thought he was dying, but he wasn't. Called the ambulance, and he knew the ambulance driver. And I told him get in the back. He said, I ain't riding in the back. I'm gonna ride in front of you. And he did. Well, he got over to the hospital. I never heard my dad say a cuss word in my life. And he said, they examined him on and told nurse, I'm going home. She said, you can't go home. She said, you got to stay. He said, I'm not staying. I'm going home. He did what he wanted to do and everything. And he said, I'm going to the house and I'm going to ride that damn motorcycle before I quit. Said, all I got to do is two things, die and ride that damn motorcycle. And he got back on it, and that rock wall right there was higher than that brick there.
Yep, right at the end of this right here.
He run right square into that, throwed him out in the field.
Next day.
That was about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Stubborn as a mule.
He had on a watch. It was solid gold. And it tore it up, tore its hands up, all that stuff. And he said, well, I reckon you better quit until tomorrow. I said, yeah, I think so.
You know, y'all talk about the neighbors in this neighborhood growing up. Are a lot of the families that have always been here, maybe not the same ones, but their children, do they still all live down through here? Is it still?
No, to be honest with you, the Dickersons sold, the racetrack bought it, which was right across. Ken and them had originally moved right over here, the next road over, but they moved out, and then Edith May got remarried, and then she passed, but all the kids were gone, and he still owns that house on the left side. That's the only house on the left side. The Rakeses are all passed. They're gone. And then on the right side, the Booths, they ended up selling to the Ellers. The Ellers was here, but, I mean, Eddie and them didn't stay here. All the kids are there. It's now been bought out by the track. The Perkins still live down the street, and some of those guys. And then coming up, the next house was Catherine. She just passed this year. The kids are all grown and moved out, but I think they're going to auction off the house or sell the house. So pretty much there's nobody really left on the whole street besides mom and dad, in the Williams side. So everybody still stays in touch. See them all the time. Just a lot of respect for what we did on the road, not only as families, but I mean, I just named off Ken and everybody that fished with Dad, and Tim Pace and I, hang out and grew up together, and it's been a huge cool place to live. Not only from all the excitement with the racetracks, and the activity with the racetrack, but like Clay, I mentioned Clay, and I have a great relationship and grew up around him, but it's been a fun place to be from, and a cool place to grow up and to watch the world go round. To be honest with you, it's been really fun.
Well, I got to ask both of you, because Chris, we know your history. You've been all around with the, kind kind of organizing the souvenir trailers, and of course we spoke about your dad kind of doing that with you. So you've pretty much been to every single track on the circuit and some, even ones that probably still aren't on the schedule anymore. A lot of people listening to might not remember. Is there a more unique entrance to a track than Martinsville? I mean, with a neighborhood right there, right up into the track.
Not really. I mean, you think about the old school stuff, you know, with Darlington being right there, and you know, there used to be a lot of houses right there, but they're kind of gone. You think about Wilkesboro. We went back this week, and it was fun because I remember parking in a couple people's houses, you know, to sell souvenirs from, and they're no longer there. But we forged great relationships.
What about Richmond, maybe?
Richmond's pretty cool. It's not really changed that much.
Compared to what he said, yeah.
Yeah, when we first started going to Richmond, you know, the fairgrounds was always there, and you know, that track was a totally different configuration. They changed it. Heck, I can't remember, 91.
80, yeah, 90, 91.
Yeah,
I think 80.
It might have been 89.
You talking about went from the fairgrounds to the Tri-Oval?
Yeah.
I thought that was in the mid-'80s.
Well, I know.
I think 88
yeah,
was
it's probably
88 or
88.
89
It's probably
was the
88.
first year.
It was before GM Goodwrench, so it was Wrangler Day. So it's probably. And so I remember going to that track. You know, when it was
Everything's in our
Well, it is. That's how you remember it.
well, you got to. I've told about this about files, and you remember some of them. I have files based upon either by car design or year or championship or whatever.
That's how smart people really say you associate it with something, and you're able to recollect a whole lot better than most people. It's just that association.
Yeah, and so I mean, I remember those days. You know, pretty cool. Bristol was really fun. You know, back in the day, they were really fun. But look, I mean, every track has its personality. It has their neighbors. It has, you know, the people that live close by. They're fun times, and you build relationships. I can tell you right now, of every track I've ever went to, you know, I've forged relationships with a lot of different people, and some of my, you know, closest friends are from those people that I hung around with at those tracks.
I've been to Talladega. I ain't seen no house. That's the most unique because it is nothing near. It is nothing near Talladega,
and it never really was.
I mean, it's just a field.
Yeah,
it's like the big, massive field you're driving along, and there's a racetrack.
Yeah. And you know, the first year we went to Indy, you know, we sat in yards and, you know, different things because, you know, the track hadn't really bought that street up like they're doing now. And like I said, it's just everything was unique. Pocono was unique back in the day.
I'd love to go to Pocono.
You know, and every track has its personality, and you know, rightfully their own.
Dover's kind of set right in the middle of that.
Yeah, I remember first time we went to Dover, there was houses right behind the little road. And I know we're going to wrap this up. We've been almost 2 hours, but it's been really fun. But,
oh man, I wish we could go on forever.
Daddy's, you know, it's past his bedtime. He turns into a pumpkin here about 9:15. And but no, it's been really fun, and you know, it's, you know, we've forged a lot of friendships, you know, everywhere we've been, and you know, we respect all those individuals because they're just like us. You know, they're human beings, and you know, we like treating them as one. So it's been fun.
Well, a couple things I'd want to know before we get off here. Number one, Orbreyn, I'd have to ask you, you were probably sitting on one of the most premier spots of property in all of Martinsville City or Henry County right here. How many times have you had people coming up to you just backing up a Brinks truck trying to get it away from you?
There have been a few asks.
I don't know. It hasn't been bad.
Yeah.
I figure people be bothering the hell out of you at all points in times.
No.
Not really.
Well, my other question would be, sitting here from this view and being able to watch the world go by for as long as you have, and you know, watching your children and grandchildren grow up and become successful and kind of follow their dreams. I guess for somebody that's seen as much as you have and has done as much as you have, if you had one piece of advice to pass on to the world, what would it be?
Oh, Lord, I don't know. I don't have it. The only thing I can say is just live your life with a Christian life and live it the way you want to live it and do what you want to do.
I think if you do that, it's all going to fall into place.
Yeah. It's kind of like he said about fishing. When he goes to fish, he goes to fish.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Live it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, this has been for me.
Because
Bodie and I don't know if I ever expected we would do a show like this, and now I'm kind of thinking about it, I'm like, why haven't we done more? I mean,
I'm sitting here in a man's carport, as I said, and I can think right here that he's probably all the the famous minds that we've idolized since we were kids. And Earnhardt's had sat here and had this same conversation right here on this porch, and then Modern Drivers, all of these guys. I mean, she just, Chris's mom just handed us a picture signed by Kurt Busch where he just left because they weren't home. Said, we missed you. As big as a fan as I am, the student of the sport, it fascinates me because I can sit here and just imagine Earnhardt sitting here, or Richie Petty or. I think that's fascinating to me.
Well, how does that still work with the majority of the drivers probably flying in on the chopper these days? Do they still manage to make their way up here anymore?
Yeah.
No, it's full. We
parked 90 cars.
Yeah, and
90 cars.
Yeah, 90, right here in the back, 90, and it's the who's who. I mean, it's the cows.
$25 a piece.
Yeah.
I don't blame you one bit. They tear up my grass, it's going to be $25 a piece too.
Gets really bad. Gets really ruddy when it rains too. But I mean, it's the police work with us. Let them out. And
I was actually going to ask you what the price was. I don't believe that price has went up over the years. That's been about the same since I was a kid.
If you look around, there's been others that's more. But I mean, with who we got here and. With all the personalities here, they're just looking for a place to get out, and it helps Daddy pay a little bit of tax here and there and other things, and it just helps a little bit. So
I feel bad because I've always parked on the back stretch. There's that back gate down there is only open on Cup race morning.
Yeah,
and I always go down to the exit there at the and I come back at the sports complex, and then I come back and I turn right in there, and then we park right there at the railroad tracks on the other side. And when you leave, when it's time to leave, it's just an express lane out. So that's why I've always parked over here. I don't think I've ever parked on this side. Come to think of it.
Well, I don't know where I'm parking at. Excuse me.
Somebody
I don't know where I'm parking at this year, but I think I'm going to be making my way up here at least to hang out for the
absolutely.
party before the race.
For everything you guys have done for us, it'll be $50 a piece. We got you a spot.
That's a fair price.
Well,
okay. The group discount.
If you wreck me again in our iRacing, it's going to be $100 for you.
I don't think I've
you should charge.
you.
Hey, look.
Actually, he hasn't wrecked me yet.
Look.
I said yet.
He drives a Tesla. He hadn't been paying gas prices. You should charge him extra just for that fuel surge.
Exactly.
No, I get paid. I have to pay the state for that. Well, yeah, okay. I don't think I've wrecked you yet, but maybe in practice. If you do something silly in practice, you're just driving along. Boom, Chris knocks you out and totals the car, and you got to start all over again.
I do that every once in a while, just to let you know I'm there.
Well, I can tell you, I've had an amazing night. Like I was alluding to earlier, I never imagined this is kind of the direction the show would go in. But now the more we get into it, especially after speaking with Paul the other night as well, and having Gerald and Jimmy on here, like these are the people that really shaped our childhood and immensely, whether we know it or not. And that's kind of like how it is here tonight, to be able to pass this place so many times as a kid and not probably think twice about it and then be sitting here today and be able to tell all these stories. The one thing I will walk away saying is we have to come back here and do it again, and we have to get Mama on here because I think she's chomping at the bits and want to come in here and tell some of these stories. And I don't think we can pass that up either. The woman's perspective is always just completely different.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to tell it truthfully. The guys, we always embellish just a little bit. We like telling that story. It's like that old Pepsi commercial where about every 10 years a guy would tell a story about kicking a field goal. First time he told it, 15-yard field goal, nobody in the stadium, whatever, they win the game.
It's a true fishing story.
Yeah.
50 years down the road, he's still telling the
it.
story, and he's kicking a 50-yard field goal in front of 80,000 people in high school with a broken leg. It's just...
It carries on and adds,
so we need the women's.
it up.
We need the women's perspective. So I would love to come back down here and do that again, Chris. And thank you so very much for giving us this opportunity.
This was fun.
Absolutely,
I liked this a lot.
Enjoyed it.
We need to do it again. Y'all are a fine family, and I can see where you all get it from. Wonderful family, wonderful people, and we appreciate everybody that's tuned in for this. And I hope you learned a little bit of something, a little bit of piece of history, not only of the Speedway here, but just of the people around here that have made a big impact on our community over the years. So
Thank you for y'all's time.
Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all giving us an opportunity to share a little bit of the Speedway Road, as we call it. So,
well, I want to
fun.
do it again. And
Never know, might come back up here pre-race.
Orbreyn,
They say they got a little something going on down here in October, don't they?
oh yeah, absolutely. September 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that Thursday in October. Really, that's what I'm
Modifieds.
excited about
Yeah.
the most. Yes, because I haven't been here to see that race.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been since they left. I haven't been back here since
We
they
got-
brought them back.
I think we've got media credentials for the modified, not the modified race, the late model race. I think we got that signed up.
Oh, I would think we've got credentials for the modified race as well, if I had to guess, if we wanted them. I'm just saying. Anyway, so I've had a blast up here today. I want to do it again. So on behalf of Bodine and Chris, Orbreyn, Barbara, thank y'all for your time and for coming up here. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at the Appalachian Podcast. Go follow the Smart Modified Tour as well. JB Cole is doing such a good job of
What?
he's doing a wonderful job of keeping those web pages up. Always a lot of good content on there. We're gonna we gotta let JB be here to defend himself, so we can't go down. So check out the Smart Modified Tour. When's the next race?
Carteret.
That
September
is
3rd.
September 3rd. That's Labor Day weekend. Unfortunately, I won't make it there, but we're looking forward to another big event up at Motor Mile for the Appalachian Podcast. So keep tabs on us.
And we got a lot going on here, man. We just keep listening. We appreciate everybody spending their time listening to us. And what we got?
Yes, and go on our Patreon. It's $3 a month. You're supporting local. It takes a lot to do this. We're doing it out of our own pocket, so you get episodes early right now. If you have Patreon, you can listen to the Paul Rafford Show. If you don't, you got to wait for it to come out. This show will be on Patreon before anything else comes out as well. So go over there, support us, and get everything early. And hopefully soon, Bodine, we're going to bring some subscriber content, which means maybe little tidbits here and there of us coming together. Maybe here and there we'll take some, like today where we recorded the first 15 minutes before we actually started. Maybe that 15 minutes, put it on Patreon so you can get some behind-the-scenes kind of thing. We're going to add everything to this one, though, because – I want to do it
I've
like
got
that.
some ideas. I talked to Billy. I shot him some ideas today. So
check all that out. Again, thank you, Chris, for everybody here. We'll catch you next time.
Appreciate it.
thank y'all.
Hey, folks, appreciate you sticking around. Every now and then we get lucky and we end up turning on the record button before we start, and we end up getting some really good stories. This show was no different. We wanted to go ahead and add these here to the end. So this is about the first 8 to 10 minutes of our conversation before we officially got started tonight. So phenomenal stories, and I hope you enjoy.
But anyway, just to go quickly through that. So then Papa retired at, 52? Was Papa 52 when he retired?
Yeah.
And Daddy went to work for Wells and Donovan, done some construction work, plumbing, building, and then he went to work for the Martinsville Speedway. So Daddy not only done all the maintenance and everything, but he done all the souvenirs, the food. He had to order all the product. He had to order all the food, beverage, and cut onions. But he also done all the maintenance of the racetrack and done everything, that managed the racetrack in itself, which is kind of when I was coming along in my heyday and got to see a lot of different aspects of racing. And then Daddy quit there and come to work for me out on the souvenir trailer, and he worked for he only worked on Dale Senior's trailer. He worked it basically till Daddy retired. Well, technically I fired him, but I fired him so he can get unemployment, not because he was doing it.
We're still recording, too, by the way.
No, that's fine, because everybody to this day is mad at me because I fired him. And I tried to tell them, I'm like, you don't know the whole story, but that's beside the point. So while we're talking, Daddy also, when, Smith Mountain was basically, formed, Philpott was formed, not a lot of people was fishing back in the day. I mean, people don't realize bass didn't start till 1972. And they created the Bass Federation. Ray Scott and him was over top of it. We'll talk about this. But anyway, Dad became the Virginia Bass Federation president for Virginia for 5 years. But the cool thing is they fished the very first bass tournament ever at Eufaula, Alabama, I believe is where it was. And if I remember correctly, was that when those people drowned and they had the bad weather too?
Yeah, all the tacks fell out of the boats. Water was rough. We took bathing suits because, we thought we was going to have a good time. It was hot. And the temperature was below 20. And
Good Lord.
it was tough.
I'd say so.
But the Virginia team, which Dad was part of, finished second by 2 ounces.
Yeah.
The very first one ever.
We was fishing against Tom Mans,
Yeah. Bill Dance.
Bill Dance,
Shoot.
all the top pros.
Yeah.
And we went down. I thought we was something, And got down there, and everybody, the coach was covered with patches. Helping them up is covered with patches. Patches on the boat, signs. I said, boys, we in the wrong place. Well, in the morning we went out to fish. This guy was putting his boat in. The ramp was real straight. And his pads is frozen. And the boat slid off and down the concrete about 50 foot and into the water. I said, well, we might be all right. They just sticking the wheel.
Yeah. But that kind of started the whole bass, Daddy being in the very first tournament ever, and I know we talk about different things, Dad from the fishing side of it. We seen Bill Dance at the congressional, congressional gala last year. And Bill Dance come up there and was just all on him, talking about the old times and stuff. I got a great picture of it. But it was cool that Bill, recognized,
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, we also seen Woo Daves here a couple of years ago. And, Woo lives, in Richmond. And Daddy pretty much, hey, look, I'm not going to tell him he taught him everything he knows. But, Woo became a better fisherman after he fished with Dad quite a bit, and Daddy helped him out quite a bit, which was pretty cool.
So Bill Dance knows your dad, and you're buddies with Hank Parker.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like the two biggest outdoorsman names from my childhood right there.
Yeah.
I remember every morning waking up on Saturday morning. A lot of kids watch cartoons. Because my dad had a satellite, nobody else did. So somehow I'd find Bill Dance Outdoors on there, and that's what I'd watch on Saturday morning. It was awesome.
Well,
man, that's some childhood memories.
Yeah, we probably have as many bloopers as Bill Dance has sometimes. Because you never know on the lake what's going to happen. That's for sure. But, Dad, kind of helped out the Henry County Bassmasters. I don't know if you started it, but I think y'all all kind of created it together, right?
Yeah, 4 of us.
Who was the lead people back then? Who was you fishing with back then, Dad, when y'all first started?
Cecil Lemons.
Yeah.
And Pete Shelton.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of good ones.
Yeah. Now, they were good fishermen back then. I mean, I think about Wingfield, and I think about Raymond, and I think about I'm thinking about the one that always done something crazy, Lewis Walker.
Oh.
Didn't Lewis? What did Lewis do to y'all one time? Y'all was going to Bugs Island, and y'all was driving down the road in his station wagon. I think
he
it was.
He was driving, and I was on the other side. All of a sudden, he just got up out of the seat, over the seat, over the back seat, out the back, and got in the boat.
Driving down the road.
I grabbed the steering wheel and started driving. We went back there and mixed him up a drink. Come back and sat down and drank.
Went through the back window, out in the boat, mixed him a drink, come back in, sit down. And he was driving. Daddy had to reach over there and grab the steering wheel, start driving.
Say, hold on, I'll be back in a minute.
Lewis would do anything.
Lewis was crazy.
Anything. We went in Leggett's store, and there's a woman wanting something to do, but there wasn't nobody wait on. But it was 2 women over there. They just run them out. And he went over there and got one of them and says, I want you to help this woman. And so she said, well, I got to talk to this little girl. So she did. So he all
Made him mad.
and he asked the lady what she needed. She said, well, I need a pair of pants for my husband. He said, what color you want? And she told him and said, what else you need? He went and got them. Size and everything, she told him her size. He said, would you like to have a shirt with? She said, be nice. So he said, I'll get one to match. He did that. He got her socks. He sold everything. Underwear and a belt. And he said, is that all you need? She said, I believe that'll do it. He said, okay. He took her by a hand and led her over there to them two, run them out. And turned her around and said, wait on this lady and I'll go get you another.
Lewis was crazy. I was trying to think. Well, so who did you fish with mostly when you was fishing? I mean, I know in the very beginning, Ray Wilson was your fishing buddy, and Ken Dickerson, right?
Yeah.
That y'all fished together the most. So, do you feel like that y'all were one of the first ones that ever started fishing in some of these lakes when they first started coming around?
There was people fishing, but there wasn't no tournament.
Right, no tournaments.
We was first tournament in Virginia.
Really? You remember what year that was?
About 70.
About 70. Do you know who won it?
Lord, no.
We wasting all the good stuff.
No, I'm recording this.
Oh, okay.